I make a motion to approve consent agenda as amended.
Thank you, Commissioner Weatherspoon. Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to item 5 on the agenda, special presentations. Tonight, I think we have 4 proclamations. If we have individuals that are here for those, if you would just step up to the front when we get to those, so we can read those proclamations, thanking and celebrating you. If not, we may just do it from up front. Mr. Mark Johnson will do a proclamation for public safety telecommunication operators during COVID-19. Do we have anybody here representing that group? Yes. Great.
Proclamation recognizing public safety telecommunicators during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas on Sunday, April 11, 2001 was the start of National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week. And whereas National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week is a time to celebrate and thank those who created a better and safer world for the public. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has presented unique and challenging circumstances for all these hard-working and dedicated public servants. And whereas Harnett County telecommunicators have been considered essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas the Harnett County telecommunicators have been critical to the safety, care, needs, and well-being of the citizens of Harnett County during the fight against COVID-19. And whereas while many have been ordered or instructed to stay at home, Harnett County telecommunicators have the responsibility during the COVID-19 pandemic to continue operations. And whereas throughout the course of COVID-19 pandemic, Harnett County telecommunicators have worked tirelessly to keep the community safe from the wide-ranging and devastating effects of COVID-19. And whereas many of these employees are at risk of contracting COVID-19 and have already contracted COVID-19 due to their exposure while providing critical services. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Harnett County Board of Commissioners expresses its gratitude and admiration for all Harnett County telecommunicators and for their sacrifices and dedication as they worked tirelessly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Adopted this 17th day of May 2001, and for Harnett County Commissioners, Brooks Matthews, Chairman, Lou Weatherspoon, Vice Chairman, Mark Johnson, Barbara McCoy, and Matt Cole. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your service and hard work and for being here tonight. We really appreciate that. Next, we have a proclamation honoring our healthcare providers during COVID. Those of you here representing that group, if you would come forward, Mr. Johnson would like to read that proclamation. Thank y'all for being here.
A proclamation recognizing the healthcare providers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a state of unprecedented health, social, and economic disruption in the United States, in North Carolina, and in Harnett County. And whereas healthcare providers, including physicians, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, nurses, and medical assistants, have been considered essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas healthcare providers have been critical to the health and well-being of the citizens of Harnett County during the fight against COVID-19. And whereas while many have been ordered or instructed to stay home, healthcare providers have the responsibility during the COVID-19 pandemic to continue operations. Whereas throughout the course of the COVID-19 pandemic, healthcare providers have been on the front lines providing testing and medical care for individuals exposed to or infected with the virus. And whereas healthcare providers have worked and continue to work diligently to vaccinate as many individuals as quickly and safely as possible in the ongoing effort to defeat COVID-19. And whereas many of these employees are at risk of contracting COVID-19 or have already contracted COVID-19 due to their exposure while providing critical medical services. Now, therefore, be it be proclamated that the Harnett County Board of Commissioners expresses its sincere gratitude and admiration for all healthcare providers and for their sacrifices and dedication as they work tirelessly during the COVID-19 pandemic. Adopted the 17th day of May 2021, Harnett County Board of Commissioners. Brooks Matthews, Chairman, Louis Witherspoon, Vice Chairman, Mark Johnson, Barbara McCoy, and Pat Nichol. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here. Next, we have a proclamation recognizing volunteers who devoted their time in the assistance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Anybody here representing our volunteers tonight? Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Proclamation recognizing volunteers during the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has led to a state of unprecedented health, social, and economic disruption in the United States, in North Carolina, and in Harnett County. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has presented challenges for local health departments, which has required additional resources and assistance to provide essential services to the public. And whereas a number of individuals have volunteered their time to assist Harnett County with those additional needs, including vaccinating members of the public, which is a testament to the compassion and generosity of the citizens of this county. And whereas these volunteers have knowingly and selflessly risked their own health and safety to assist with the care, needs, and well-being of the citizens of Harnett County. And whereas these volunteers continue to work diligently to assist in any manner possible in the ongoing effort to defeat COVID-19, and whereas these volunteers deserve to be recognized for their steadfast dedication, compassion, and determination to support and assist the citizens of Harnett County. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Harnett County Board of Commissioners express its sincere gratitude and admiration for all individuals who have volunteered their time to assist Harnett County during the COVID-19 pandemic and for making a difference in their community during these unprecedented times. Adopted this 17th day of May 2021, Harnett County Board of Commissioners, Brooks Matthews, Chair, Louis Witherspoon, Vice Chair, Barbara McCoy, Mark Johnson, Matthew Nichol. Thank you so much. And next we have a proclamation recognizing National Emergency Medical Services Week. Larry, if you folks would come up. And we thank you for all you do as well. Whereas May 16th through 22nd, 2021 is the 46th Annual National Emergency Medical Services Week. And whereas the purpose of National Emergency Medical Services Week is to celebrate emergency medical service practitioners and the important work they do in our nation's communities. And whereas Harnett County Emergency Services employees are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury. And whereas emergency medical services has grown to fill a gap by providing important out-of-hospital care, including preventative medicine, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas Harnett County Emergency Services employees engage in thousands of hours of specified training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has been an especially challenging time for these hardworking and dedicated frontline workers. And whereas Harnett County Emergency Services employees have been critical to the safety, care, needs, and well-being of the citizens of Harnett County during the fight against COVID-19. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value, accomplishments, and sacrifices of Harnett County Emergency Services employees and all other emergency service members, especially during these unprecedented times, by designating May 16th through 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Harnett County Board of Commissioners, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 16th through the 22nd, 2021 as Emergency Medical Services Week with the theme, "This is EMS, Caring for Our Communities." The Board of Commissioners encourages the community to observe this week with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Adopted this 17th day of May, 2021, Harnett County Board of Commissioners, Brooks Matthews, Chairman, Lewis Witherspoon, Vice Chairman, Barbara McCoy, Mark Johnson, Matthew Nickel. Thank you all very much. Okay, at this time, we'll have a period of up to 30 minutes for informal comments, allowing 3 minutes for each presentation. Let me remind you that a speaker may not speak more than once during the same public comment period. Speakers shall address the board from the podium and begin their remarks by stating their name and residential address. Speakers shall maintain proper decorum and shall make comments in a civil manner. Personal attacks and use of obscene or profane language is prohibited. Miss Lindsay, I believe you had one that came in by email. We'll let you do that one first. Thank
Okay.
you.
This was emailed to me by Andrika Rhodes. She said, "It is imperative that all deputies wear body cams. In the times we are in now, public trust between residents and law enforcement is a very big deal. Respectfully, Andrika." And that's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to speak? You may approach.
Thank you and good evening. My name is Margaret Mueller, 89 Crabtree Court, Fuquay Marina. If I were to come before the board and insist that a Marxist ideology aiming to divide and destroy the United States become part of the county employees' mandated training, you would understandably think of me as a wacko. However, if I would disguise that request in the warm, fuzzy Trojan horse of diversity, equity, and inclusion training, all seemingly beneficial and righteous words, you might be inclined to agree. People like the ideas of inclusion and diversity, as well we should. But equity is where it turns Marxist. Equity does not mean equality, but rather the taking from some to give to others. So now an enemy must be created in order to take from them. Enter systemic racism, meaning white people were and are the source of all problems within our county and country. If we expose our county employees to this ideology, then division, destruction, and hatred enter their collective consciousness, and the taking from becomes very easy. I have been informed that a contract has been signed and the date set for this exact training. As a Harnett County taxpayer, I want the board to understand that the only training county employees should receive is skill enhancement training, CPR, and customer service training. There is no room nor money in the budget to finance Marxist ideology. I also want to caution the board about accepting money from a seemingly benign source or sources to implement the training. We don't want outside advocacy groups bribing us to do their anti-US work. Therefore, I strongly urge the board to investigate and stop the diversity, equity, and inclusion training for county employees. If it is too late to do this, however, the training should not take place during the workday, should not be mandated, nor should county employees fear retaliation for not attending. Let's not subject our Harnett County employees to Marxist ideology under the pretense that it is necessary in-service training. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reeves?
Good evening, Jerry Rivas, 364 Twin Ponds Road, Sanford, North Carolina. As God is my witness, I never thought I would live to see the day where the sheriff of a county basically tried to blackmail county commissioners into passing his budget. But that's exactly, in my mind, what I saw today. To say he will pay for the dash cameras himself with drug forfeiture money if you would just pass his budget. But no to body cameras, absolutely no to body cameras. You know, if in 2015 our deputies would have been wearing body cameras, John Livingston might be alive right now. There might not be this multi-million-dollar lawsuit going on. If our deputies were wearing body cameras several years ago, Nick Cahagas might not have body slammed Tom Cardwell until it broke his hip. Body cameras, for evidentiary purposes, are unparalleled, in my opinion. That is an eyewitness who, unlike its human counterpart, its memory doesn't fade with the passing of time. It is evidence. And since when does only one deputy show up to a disturbance call? It's usually 2 or 3. Not every deputy is going to get their body camera knocked off. There's going to be one deputy standing in the background. His body camera is going to be catching everything. And North Carolina has several laws to protect the citizens. If a deputy tells me, get out of your car and stand in front of my car, in front of my camera, I don't have to. State law says I don't have to. And I don't know why this man is so stuck in the 1950s. The other thing, several weeks ago, I had been particularly well behaved one day and decided to go to Sanford and have me a donut. And I get on Highway 87 North during the PM rush hour, and traffic was running 80, 85, and 90 miles an hour. I was on a motorcycle. And when I realized how fast I was going just trying to keep up, I just turned right at Swan Station, made another right on Barbecue Church Road. I get to the first subdivision. Here's 5 Harnett County Sheriff's deputies stopping people doing a driver's license checkpoint. I objected vehemently. Now, to their credit, their performance and behavior was exemplary. But I thought that was the most blatantly stupid disservice to the taxpayer. If they want to make a difference, why didn't they have their butts 1,000 feet away doing something about the people running 90 miles an hour with a doggone cell phone in front of their face? We got 9 highway patrolmen covering this county. 9. That's 24/7. 3 of them are borrowed from other counties. If you call the sheriff's dispatch center and say, hey, there's been a fender bender in the Walmart parking lot. Oh, we don't do that. Call a highway patrol. Well, what laws do they enforce?
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Alan Longman from Harnett County. I'm to talk about the Sheriff's Department and about the body cams. I disagree about many of the functions of the body cam. They need to be done, and you need a check and balance of power. Those body cams are said that they malfunction. They have also ready excuses ready for planting if in case there's going to be problems with the police force and law enforcement. That's not right. The point is someone else should be fixing them, maintaining them, and operating them and certify them. And that has to be done outside the Sheriff's Department. The cameras should be be property of the county, not the sheriff's department alone, but the county itself, so it's accountable directly to the people of the county. So it's not their personal property or for them to do anything with. It is part of the public interest to be in the county, not just the sheriff's department, on how these cameras are used and to purchase them. If you purchase them, that makes them your property versus the sheriff's department buying them themselves. So you need the checks and balances, you do need the cameras, you do need the body cams, and you do need to have them on all the time. It's to protect the police officers. You're protecting them. They are able to see what really happened. You need to see what really happened because you need to be able to have some accountability and feedback on the practices and the training of your men. And this is the best way to do it. It's common sense. You need checks and balances. It cannot be all in one department. You need to have them paid for by the county. And you need to have them on all the time because that is what's best for the officers in the long run and your ability to train them to be very effective in what they do. Anything other than that, and you're going to leave yourself open to problems. Today is a different age than the first speaker was speaking about. Those days are over. Whatever happens is going to be in court. It will be faced in court. So what decisions you make will end up in court if they're not the right ones. We believe you have to protect yourself and cover your own behinds, but also the police officers need to have those cameras to better train them and to also make them accountable or to make them so they don't get into problems when it wasn't necessary for them. It's needed for everybody's safety and accountability. That's what you need, accountability. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seals?
Can I get some of his minutes? I'm Jay Seals. I've lived in Harnett County most of my 57 years. August 31st of 2018, I lost a 19-year-old son to heroin. Today I went through Benson, and one of the girls that's involved in it, left leaving him on the couch in Benson on Lincoln Street, was standing in the parking lot. One of her friends that's been caught several times in the Dunn Benson area for trafficking heroin, she had her book bag on her back and 3 other vehicles there she's going back and forth to. Now, for this girl to leave my son, her boyfriend, leave him on the couch in Benson dead, and them still getting caught with heroin for this little group, and nobody doing much about it, makes you feel like you're on your own on this voyage. Some of you I've been knowing for a while, but as a former law enforcement officer, I got to come in here in the public and tell y'all about this stuff. I got the tag numbers of the vehicles. I talked to First Sergeant Davis and Carey about it today in the Johnson County Sheriff's Office. These people are still running heroin. Quaaludes in Irwin today on 3rd Street we picked up. A few days ago it was on the 700 block of East Cumberland. Quaaludes, I don't even know what they are really. I've never arrested anybody for them. But to continue having to see all these drugs these people arrested in Harlem, no big dealers, makes you wonder what our goals really are, what our objectives are. Are we just out there to get the dealers and say, the little addicts and say, yeah, we're doing the job? That's really not doing the job. We need people going after these dealers coming here from the border, bringing this mess here. No specific group is here selling it, but we're all paying a price that's really not calculable in today's statistics. And I'm not really good with that word, but you understand what I mean. We need people that knows how to do interdiction in this county. And you're spending a lot of money on the sheriff's office, and we're all listening to it. These other folks, I don't know all the circumstances. I don't know what's true and what's not, but this is true. My son's buried right out here at the big intersection. At 19 years old, because the heroin is flowing and these kids think it's a game, we need to get y'all to send a message to these dealers that ain't no game. You're going to spend some time in prison. My son's spending time right out here in the graveyard. Who is going to stand up for us? You're either with us or you're against us. That's like George Bush said a few years ago at 9/11. You're either for us or you're against us. Who is for the neighborhoods? Who is against us? It's time to stand up, Harnett County. If you don't have the time on the books, you need to get the feds in here and send these drug dealers a message. The games are over. My time is up. I could talk for the next 30 minutes, but you understand what I'm trying to say. We need your help. My son is still dead and the dealers are still on the street. I got pictures of them today. I could give you the names, but I already gave it to the sheriff's office in Johnston County. I hope you understand how parents feel, folks. It's just like knocking on wood. It's real.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Gina Damaris. First, thank you all for your service to our community. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I realize that I'm speaking to very knowledgeable people, and I just want to share what I have studied and what concerns me about critical race theory and the upcoming mandatory diversity, equity, and inclusion training that was proposed at the last work session. When the training was described, I could not help but note the striking similarity it seemed to have to other critical race theory-based training going on all around the country. The CRT ideology is self-destructive to our community. It divides people into groups based on their skin color, gender, and sexuality, and then places blame on certain groups based solely on these traits. This ideology is not only wrong, but dangerous. As Christopher Rufo writes, quote, critical race theory reformulates the old Marxist dichotomy of oppressor and oppressed, replacing the class categories of bourgeoisie and proletariat with the identity categories of white and black. But the basic conclusions are the same. In order to liberate man, society must be fundamentally transformed through moral, economic, and political revolution, end quote. Implementing CRT training is initiating a Marxist transformation of our country. CRT ideology also seeks to oversimplify U.S. history and pushes the idea of systemic racism and irredeemable inequality. Contrary to what is written in the 1619 Project, the birthday of our nation is 1776. And that is not because that is when we achieved the ideal of all men created equal, but because that is when the revolutionary notion of government for and by the people was boldly put forth. Just the creation of the Declaration of Independence and the ideals it contained were revolutionary and noble in a world where slavery of various ethnic groups on multiple continents had existed for thousands of years. Our nation is not perfect. Sin nature exists for all humanity. But as Martin Luther King Jr. said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. CRT is neither light nor love and will only lead to national ruin. Telling any person that they are intrinsically oppressor or oppressed because of their immutable traits is itself what CRT claims to oppose, racist and sexist. It seems to me CRT training is part of a larger plan in the works in which the end goal is to have us all divided, distracted, distraught, and dependent. We are so fortunate to live in this country and to have a government in which we can make our voices heard. We must take small and large steps now to keep the freedoms we all enjoy, and we must unite to say no to CRT indoctrination in all its forms. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, hi, my name is Lisa Cockrell. I'm a patriot who lives at 284 Calibiot Road, Fuquay, Farina. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to come here tonight. You've already heard a couple of our folks speak, and I'm very proud of what they had to say. I'm going to get right to the heart of the matter. It is my understanding that a particular type of training is about to become unhinged on the public sector here in Harnett County, statewide and nationally. Unfortunately, we are one of 3 states that is striving to implement critical race theory from the top down through training that everyone in the public sector will need to be trained in CRT. The source of many of my remarks tonight will be taken from Dr. Vodi Bakum, pastor, Christian apologist, lecturer, university president, author, and notable speaker. He is a Black male, husband, and father of 5 incredible children. He was born in the slums and gang-infested Los Angeles, California, born to a teenage drug addict who claimed to be a Buddhist. I've had the honor and privilege of hearing Dr. Bakum speak on 3 occasions. Bakum states that political correctness and multiculturalism come together under the guise of people being free. Over time, we have been taught that we are not part of a whole, as in the Republic of the United States of America. We've been indoctrinated to believe that we are part of a subgroup. When there are elections and polls going on, you don't hear anymore about who's ahead in the polls by what number. You hear who's ahead in the polls by what subgroup: white male, black female, Hispanic, people of color, handicapped, and so forth. Critical race theory, or CRT, aligns itself with intersectionality, which is simply a formula for homogeneous power. You may or may not be familiar with that term, but it basically means that if you are a white male, heterosexual, cisgendered, and able-bodied native-born American, then you are held oppressive. You are being oppressed, therefore being held down by the man. This critical race theory movement is very tied and undergirded by Black Lives Matter Marxist organization. You can go on their website, and within their top bullet points, you will find their desire to eradicate the nuclear family. I have 4 young millennials. 2 are young men, 20 and 29 years old. 2 are young women. CRT and BLM are tied together to convince our children and our teenagers that they need to apologize for being black or apologize for being white. The heart of critical race theory, as has already been stated by my comrade here, is to divide us, and it comes under the guise of action civics. The heart of this movement is to turn races against each other. It is a smokescreen for the left to exit the building as they usher in very detrimental policies across our nation. I want to stress to you that as a free citizen of the United States, as a republic of the United States of America, I will fight this to my death, as I fight Planned Parenthood, as I fight anything that comes in to eradicate the freedoms of the Republic of the United States of America. I stand here upon the Constitution of these United States. I come here as a free citizen, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Rose Teniente, 179 Tilden Howington Drive in Lillington. So I am here, as per the usual, to express, my ongoing concern regarding racial disparities in the county, including disparities in the areas of poverty, homeownership, healthcare, including Black infant mortality, which has remained 2 to 3 times higher than the rate of white infant mortality in this county, the disparate earnings, which I presented to you at the last commissioner meeting, as well as disparate interactions with law enforcement, not only for adults, but also with our youth. I serve on the Harnett County Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. Our area consultant today gave us a statistic for Harnett County that despite Black kids making up only 22% of Harnett County's population, they made up 73% of the referrals to law enforcement. And so, I heard a lot just now. I had a lot of time to hear some input from some individuals who are afraid and concerned. And the reason why we need to fight for racial equity, which is not a zero-sum game, that is one of the biggest misconceptions about racial equity, that you're going to be taking something from another group. I'm going to bring up the example of the curb cuts. And so the curb cuts were when disability advocates fought to have cuts made in the curb. And that was so individuals in wheelchairs could actually get up onto sidewalks. And yes, it helped out individuals in wheelchairs. Maybe arguably it had the biggest impact on them, but it did not just help those individuals. It helped delivery folks wheeling dollies. It helped people with their children in strollers. It helped travelers with luggage as they're trying to get, crossing the street and get onto the curb. So when we can improve equity, everyone benefits. When we keep seeing that groups are doing so much worse, that is not good as a county. That brings us down. That is exactly what is bringing down America's infant mortality rate. America has the worst infant mortality rate out of any developed country. We're actually behind Russia. Part of that is because of how badly we treat Black mothers in this country. Part of that comes from the discrimination and bias that Black mothers receive when they go to get health care. This is why these trainings are important. It's because racism is killing people. It is a public health crisis. The American Medical Association has declared that racism is a public health crisis. Across North Carolina, the DHHS puts out its racial health disparities report. Black and brown folks are doing worse in almost every single area, stemming from lack of access to care and discrimination when they get care. So I will just continue to reiterate that myself and others in the community are 100% behind any and all efforts that you are taking to dismantle inequities in the county, including trainings that you're able to come up with. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Rick Temple, and I'm a lifelong resident of Harnett County. And y'all heard some of my people speak tonight. You've heard both sides, and I'm going to ask you to not believe either one of us. Okay? I'm going to ask you to do your own research on this word equity. Okay? And not only on what you just hear about up here, but search that word back. That word has been around for a long time, and it's been used against the people by the federal government for a long time. People has lost money over it, not been paid for things because of that word. So I really encourage you to research that word that's been put with the other words that goes along with it, and they all gonna fit with Common Core and everything else because they all got an agenda. Not just one group, but many groups has agenda, and they use these words against the people of America. And they don't always use it in a positive way, okay? I ain't saying it ain't been used in a positive way, but it has definitely been used in a negative way a lot of times. I've done my research on that word. Don't take my word for it. Do it yourself, okay? And get the true meaning of what it really means and how long it's been around. And I think you could do that and make the right decision about whatever y'all got to do. My second little thing was, I won't say nothing about it, but it's about this sheriff, okay? I hear people say all the time, you need to retrain the sheriff and all that. No, we need to retrain our parents and let them teach their children that when they get stopped on the road, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, because I was taught when I come along that when you got in trouble, whether you are or you won't, the place to handle it is in the courtroom. Hire you a lawyer. That's where that's done at. It ain't done on the street. If you ain't supposed to do it there. If you don't want to go in the courtroom, don't do nothing wrong. That's what I was told. And we didn't have the problems we have today. We need to educate the people on how they're supposed to treat the officers when they're stopped, okay? Because, see, here's one thing. Them officers are trained that if you pull a knife, they pull a gun. They are trained to go one step above wherever you at. If you are yes, sir, and no, sir, they are yes, sir, and no, sir, okay? And that's the level it should stay on. Common sense is all it is. Thank you.
Thank you. We have anyone else?
I was looking at you guys. Thank you. Normally I don't respond a whole lot when somebody says something about me. But let me say this. In this commissioners meeting this morning, in the budget meeting, I hope none of y'all took it that I was holding y'all hostage. I was offering to help. And again, normally I don't respond to the gentleman that made the remark. But let me say this. That's the reason in 2018, when I ran for sheriff, the man that ran against me got 323 votes. And that's because he don't know how to run a sheriff's office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Elizabeth Kuda, 234 Hamilton Road, Bangor, North Carolina. Do you think we need a racial equity commission now? We have gone through this when we first started talking about this, a lot of the citizens knew this tide was coming, that this conversation was coming to a head. And the county commissioners needed to get ahead of it and control what was about to happen, because it's going to happen, whether you control it or not. The issue of race in this county is something that has been hush-hush, just to show you how unincluded we feel as minorities in the day-to-day working of this county. I am the only African American or person who is not of Caucasian descent standing in front of you today. The only one. Take that as you might. Number 2, where is Paula Stewart? We felt that earthquake. We felt it. And that is such a shame on this board. A shame on you gentlemen. Shame, shame, shame on you. Shame on you. Where is Paula Stewart? The citizens of this county deserve that because she has given and dedicated her life to this county. Her life. That's with raising her babies, taking care of her house, having her husband, doing whatever else she has to do. She came and made Harnett County #1. Customer service, outreach to the public, making everyone feel that we had a voice, we could come and talk. Many of our issues we could raise to the county because we could just send her an email and we knew she would say this is where the county stands on this issue. Now we are being told, come back in a week. We may have an answer. That's what we're getting now. Come back in a week. Shame on you guys, man. We had done so well. Paula was there. She was pulling us out of the Stone Ages, and now she's not. That is the mark of your presence. That is what you have done for us here in Harnett County. We don't have Paula. Also, I'd like to unequivocally say if the diversity training the county has embarked on is not working, because when it comes to diversity training, there's certain language you have to use. I'm trained and licensed to teach diversity and inclusion. And you notice I say diversity and inclusion because when people hear equity, they address it differently. There's certain language you use when you do diversity and inclusion training to make everyone feel that they have a contributory part in the work environment. It is not downing or taking from. It is acknowledging and recognizing everybody's contributory part in the total effort, everybody's part, okay? Gentlemen, you have to do that racial equity commission. You have, at this point, it's getting to a point of no choice. Do we have to take to the streets? Do we have to have a war, a fight? What? The citizens are telling you we are confused about our racial issues. Come on, your next item should be how to form a racial equity commission. Have a great day.
Thank you. That concludes our time we had set aside for public comments. At this time, we'll move to appointments.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have a couple of appointments tonight. I move that Phyllis A. Godwin be appointed to the Harnett County Economic Development Council effective July 1, 2021 for District 2, and that Holly Geiger be reappointed to the Nursing Home Community Advisory Committee representing District 2.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Commissioner, who had the second? Second. Thank you, Commissioner Nickel, for the second. Any discussion on those? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Those appointments are made. That brings us to item 8, Board of Election request approval of a resolution to adopt and acquire new voting equipment.
Mr. Chairman, did you miss 7A and 7B?
I did, thank you. Because I scribbled them in, can't see it. Mr. Appel, would you like to come and address 7A with us?
Yes, good evening, Commissioners.
Thank you.
As you all know, at this point, Ms. Paula Stewart decided to start her leave of absence early, effective this past Friday, May 14th, 2021. And in doing so, pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 153A-83, she wrote a letter that she filed with the clerk in which she designated Mr. George Wood as acting county manager. Upon filing this letter, it would be incumbent upon the board to vote whether to accept that designation. If you do, Mr. Wood would be able to exercise the powers and perform the duties as county manager during her temporary leave of absence.
Thank you, Mr. Appel. Any questions for Mr. Appel? Do I hear a motion?
I move that we accept the appointment of Mr. George Wood as acting county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson, second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. I think B then would be the swearing in for Mr. Wood.
You will put your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. I, George Wood, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, so help me God. I, George Wood, do further solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the constitutional powers and authorities which are or may be established for the government thereof, and that I will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of the United States to the best of my knowledge and ability, so help me God. I, George Wood, do further solemnly swear that as Harnett County Acting County Manager, I will well and truly execute the duties of the office of County Manager according to the best of my skill and ability, according to the law, so help me God. All right.
Thank you, and welcome aboard, Mr. Wood. We appreciate your willingness to serve. Okay, that brings us to item 8. Board of Elections request approval of resolution to adopt and acquire new voting equipment. The part about pending state of elections approval, you can scratch. That has been granted, I understand. And I think Ms. Jones is here tonight.
Yes, good evening, and thank you for your consideration in this matter. My name is Claire Jones. I'm the Harnett County Board of Elections Director. Nice to meet you, Mr. Wood. So I just have just a brief summary of what brings us here, how we got here today. In September 2019, I began the CIP process to acquire new voting equipment because our current equipment, which was purchased in 2006, was near the end of its useful lifespan. At that time, we estimated the total cost would be between $250,000 to $300,000, depending on which vendor was chosen by the Board of Elections. And then the Board of Commissioners approved the CIP for the 21-22 fiscal year. We knew 2020 was going to be a big election year, and we planned accordingly. However, we never thought we would have to factor in a global pandemic. Still, we had a successful, record-breaking election with no COVID outbreaks at any of our voting sites. However, during the 2020 general election, the Harnett County Board of Elections was awarded $172,000 in CARES grant funds for election supplies in response to COVID. I also applied and was approved for an additional $70,000 grant for election supplies and costs. These funds were used to purchase supplies that will also benefit the Elections Department for multiple years. HAVA funds, which is Help America Vote Act, have also been awarded for the 2021 fiscal year in the amount of $104,000, which will be used to offset the price of the new voting equipment, saving the county and taxpayer dollars. As you can see in the quote, the total cost of the voting equipment is $211,000. Once you factor in the HAVA funds, the county is left with just over $100,000 coming from our CIP, which is already approved. One caveat to the HAVA funds is they must be encumbered or spent by June 30th, 2021. So the Board of Elections had to work through the purchase process this fiscal year so that HAVA funds may be used and not lost. So what we're going to do is teeter that bill from the voting equipment in the 2 fiscal years. So that way we can use our HAVA funds to pay half of it, then the other half will come out of our CIP in the next fiscal year. In order to purchase the voting equipment, we had to go through a 5-step process, and this is required per the statutes and the State Board of Elections. I just wanted to let you guys know that we have completed all the steps. So step 1 was the Board of Elections had to view a demonstration. And they did that on March 10th. They viewed the HART voting equipment. On March 11th, they viewed ES&S. And I believe all you commissioners also got that link as well, where you could view that demonstration also. After that, step 2, the Board of Elections sent a preliminary recommendation to the Board of Commissioners letting you know that they wanted to move forward with the ES&S equipment, which is our current vendor. Step 3, we had a test of the proposed voting system. We did a simulated election on May 3rd, and we had several people from the public come out and view that demonstration. The board was ultimately satisfied with the demonstration. All the machines worked beautifully, and all of our audits matched after the simulated election. So step 4 was to receive State Board of Elections approval. And we did receive that on May 13th. So your package should be updated with the fact that the State Board has approved that. So step 5 is where we're at now, which is the adoption and acquisition of the new voting system by the Board of Commissioners. And hopefully that will be approved today, May 17th. If anybody has any questions, I'll be.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Any questions for Ms. Jones? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we give approval to the Board of Elections so they can continue with their steps.
Thank you, Mr. Nichol. Thank you for the second, Ms. McCoy. Any further discussion on the matter? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 9 on the agenda. Ms. Honeycutt, I believe I was told you would kick this off for us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. What you have before you is a resolution to authorize and approve the issuance by Andrew and Black River Fire Department certain tax exempt obligations. And ultimately, this resolution opens a public hearing for comment on the issuance of this debt. And then if the board so desires to, the approval of this resolution. And essentially, this is under the IRS tax codes. It allows the Andrew Fire Department, because they are a volunteer fire department, their tax exempt status to receive tax exempt interest rate when they go out for construction or capital outlay equipment. Because you are the governing authority over Andrew, you have to hold a public hearing and then likewise approve a resolution. And that will set forth those documents necessary for them to obtain tax exempt financing. And it's my understanding that they were quoted a rate of 2.99, but with this tax exempt authorization, they would receive an interest rate of 2.25. It's some considerable savings for the fire department.
Thank you, Ms. Honeycutt. Okay, at this time, we will call the public hearing to order. Let me just remind those who might wish to speak of just a few things. Please address the board from the podium and again, begin your remarks by stating your name and residential address. Please limit your comments to the subject at hand. Please maintain proper decorum and make comments in a civil manner. Personal attacks and use of obscene or profane language will be prohibited. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on that matter?
Is this the budget in total? Sorry.
Excuse me?
Is it the budget?
No. This is the public hearing for the financing for Andrew Black River Fire District, or Fire Department. Is there anyone online who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing no one and seeing no one move, we will close the public hearing at this time.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this proclamation and approve the paperwork for Andrew Black River Fire Department.
Thank you, Commissioner Witherspoon. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nickel. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, just to point out, also under your consent agenda, item 4I, there is a request from Somerville Fund Level for a similar capital request, but this is not the same thing right now. Essentially, the fire departments are required to come before the board to request approval for capital items. If Somerville's capital approval moves forward, since you have approved for them to move forward tonight, when they come out and secure their financing, you will see another resolution and a public hearing for them to do the same. So that's why there's 2 fire departments, but 1 resolution for tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that brings us to item 10, which is a public hearing on Harnett County's fiscal year 21-22 budget. The proposed budget is available online. Also, the economic development expenditures are listed on the agenda and also on the county's website. Again, we'll call the public hearing to order, and everyone will be reminded of the same rules that were mentioned prior to the other one. Oh, excuse me. Come on up. Let y'all tell about it. I don't mean to dismiss you. Yes.
So we were going to give a brief overview.
That'll be great, and then we'll kick it off.
As you know, the manager presented the recommended budget on May 3rd. It calls for a budget, general fund budget of $130.4 million, which is a 4% decrease in from fiscal year 21. Most of that is because of decreased transfers, half from Covet and half from the sale of property. So it's really more of a flat budget. Harnett Regional Water's budget is $37.9 million. Again, because of the way that debt is treated or budgeted for, it was a 26% decrease from the previous year, but it is essentially a flat budget as well. And then finally, solid waste budget of $6.7 million, which was a 1% decrease from fiscal year 21. Overall, our revenues grew about 3% from the original budget from last year. The budget's been amended considerably in the current year. So not a tremendous amount of revenue growth, even though some revenues like sales tax saw major increases. COVID has definitely made last year challenging. This year, some of those effects linger on. And so, for example, we didn't know how to budget for training in some instances, whether that training would be in person or online. And we are not completely sure that the sales tax, many rural counties in North Carolina have had a sales tax windfall this year because people stayed home and they ordered goods online. And if that trend continues, then our sales tax should stay up. But if people go back to shopping in Sanford or Wake County, then that trend will not be sustained. We provided a 15% increase in economic development, mostly for grant match and funding a director's position. For Harnett County Schools, we provided overall an additional $1.4 million. This is the first year that they participated in our CIP process, and so we recommended establishing a maintenance fund to fund large items like roofs and chillers and boilers. We held them harmless. They lost 891 students, but we maintained their funding both for current expense or operating expenses, and also covered the loss or absorbed the loss of just over $1 million in lottery funds and maintained their capital outlay funding at the prior year level. There is no general countywide property tax increase proposed. 5 fire departments have requested increases. That is detailed in your budget. The recommended budget includes 10 new positions in the general fund and 5 unfrozen positions. We are also recommending covering the loss of the RSVP program that used to be provided by the federal government. The fund balance appropriation is roughly equivalent to the percentage we recommended last year, which is $2.7 million. And the CIP largely keeps all of our capital improvements plans on track. I'd be glad to answer any questions or turn it over to the public for comment.
Any questions for Ms. Pascal?
Thank you.
Thank you for many hours and hard work you put into this. Okay, at this time, we will open our public hearing on the proposed budget. Is anyone that would like to speak, please come up, state your name, residential address.
Elizabeth Crudup again, 234 Hamilton Road, Bund Level. About the budget, just wanted to say, if there's a way that you could go ahead and put in the cameras and go ahead and get them out and have them paid for, whether the sheriff decides to pick them up and use them, that will be his, but at least the county would have provided them. Please include that in your voting. We would truly appreciate it. It will not only save lives, but also show us when the sheriff's deputies are doing an awesome job, which some of them are, but we'll never know because there was no camera.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir, come on.
My name is Alan Longman from 234 Hamilton Road, Bond Level. The reason I'm speaking is now you're talking about money for COVID and other things. I kind of remember that you had grant money that wasn't spent, and maybe that the county could obtain more funds if it had someone who was trained or hired someone who would obtain grants for the different projects that you have, so you're not missing the money. What I keep hearing is that you needed money for this and needed money for that after the fact, after the money's gone. Maybe someone should be put to use to directly go for the grant money. There'd be way more grant money than what they cost, and you'd be saving money and directing the problems that you have in the community with funds from outside its taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? See, I believe we have one online. Is that correct? We'll get you, Joe.
Yes, this was emailed to me today. This is from Constance Bryant All. I was raised on a farm located in northwest Harnett County on Highway 401, just south of Kipling. I moved back to the area 4 years ago after living and working in Wake County for over 30 years. I'm alarmed at the rate that farmland is being converted into residential subdivisions where schools are already over capacity with no road improvement requirements on secondary roads such as Christian Light Road. I have reviewed the county manager's recommended budget for the upcoming fiscal year. I agree with the assessments she and county staff have made. Ad valorem taxes, revenues generated by these approved residential developments cannot sustain the needs created by these subdivisions without more economical development of industry, business, and retail. While she reported good news of an increase in sales tax revenue, just think about the revenues that would be generated if we had adequate grocery stores, restaurants, and retail located west of Highway 210 and north of the Cape Fear River. Currently, except for Andrew, there is only one small and adequate food line, a handful of fast food restaurants, a few local chain restaurants, a few community stores for which we could not live without, and 2 Dollar Generals. These establishments cannot meet the needs of the current residents, let alone the new residents that are moving into the area each and every day. The county is losing a lot of sales tax revenue to Wake County. We also have Central Harnett Hospital, which seems to be underutilized. Northwest Harnett Elementary School, the only school currently on the drawing board in the area, is not slated to open until 2022-2023 school year. She has in parentheses, this site is currently planted in tobacco. Where will these incoming and current students go to school and how will they get there? I ask this board adopt a moratorium on residential subdivision approval and issuance of residential building permits in northwestern Harnett County until such time that a study can be conducted and a plan forwarded, developed to adequately fund the needs of the residents of Harnett County with a viable economic growth plan for northwest Harnett County small area plan.
Thank you. Mr. Lane, come on.
Let me start by apologizing. I dropped my clunky water bottle back there. I didn't mean to frighten anyone.
Twice.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
Mr. Nichols counting though.
Everybody jumped. My name is Joe Langley, and I'm a resident of 298 Kirk Adams Road in Angier and a Harnett County citizen. Let me begin by congratulating the commissioners and the Harnett County Budget and Finance staff on once again coming up with a balanced budget for the upcoming year without raising taxes on the Harnett County citizens. I appear tonight before the Harnett County Board of Commissioners in an attempt to resolve the ongoing discussion regarding transparency on the part of the Harnett County Board of Education. I hope that you will find my comments appropriate, and I hope that they address this issue and put this matter to rest once and for all. After reading two separate articles regarding pending legislation in the NC House and a companion bill in the NC Senate, I decided to do my own investigation of the transparency of not only the Harnett County Board of Education, but also Harnett County government. I began my investigation by reviewing public websites from both the Board of Education and Harnett County government. My review discovered that there was extensive financial transparency information available on both the county and the Board of Education website. However, I did notice that the Harnett County Board of Education was deficient in three specific areas. Area number one, the Board of Education does not provide a year-to-date copy of its check register listing spending by vendor. Number two, the Board of Education does not provide a listing of existing online vendor contracts of work that has been approved by the Harnett County Board of Education or school system administration. Number three, the Board of Education does not provide a list of open bids and bid results of work that are under consideration by Harnett County Board of Education or school system administration. It is important to note that a review of the Harnett County government website, on the other hand, finds these items present as they relate to Harnett County government, but it is not available on the school board site. In a recent meeting of the Board of Education, the chairman of the Board of Education, Mr. Jaggers, indicated that he did not know how the Board of Education could be more transparent. At this time, I would like to make a public records request to the county commissioners, through the county commissioners, present at this time with two goals in mind. First of all, as previously mentioned, this request will answer Mr. Jaggers' question related to what can be done to make the Board of Education more transparent. Second, this request will provide the commissioners and the county budgeting and finance staff much more comprehensive data for review in the financial decision-making process moving forward related to budget amendments that may be presented related to the Harnett County school system. My public records request is as follows. Please provide for public viewing at all times in the following information on the Harnett County Board of Education website. Number one, a year-to-date copy of its check register listing spending by vendor name and providing year-to-date totals of each vendor. And by the way, I have this available for everyone, so if you don't need to take notes. Number two, a listing of online vendor contracts of work that has been approved by the Harnett County Board of Education or school system personnel. Number three, a listing of open bids and bid results of work that are under consideration by the Harnett County Board of Education or school system personnel. I am confident that this request is a simple matter for the technical staff of the school system. However, if they run into any trouble, I would suggest that you contact these ladies back here in the county office, and they'll tell you how to do it because they've done it. I thank you for your time, and I look to the county officials for a prompt resolution to these transparency deficiencies that exist on the Harnett County Board of Education website. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much.
So as I was going through the budget, one thing that I did not see a lot of notes on were how have you asked county departments to take an equity lens to their upcoming budget? And so that could have been something that was expressed like in the notes, for example, enhanced trainings for staff, management or administration of grants. I heard that and I also listened to the Harnett Sheriff today, and it sounds like they are in need of, people, and it also sounds like they're having trouble with retention. And I'm sure it's extremely concerning to feel like you're not able to take care of your people. And I think I will just also add to that we need to be mindful of taking care of all of the residents of Harnett County as well, and that there has been an erosion of public trust between residents and law enforcement. And I did hear him talk about how, he wanted to do like dashboard cameras instead. Anything is absolutely better than nothing, but I would say, like, why can't we do both? And I know it costs money, but there are so many grants available every single year. So much, like millions of dollars get left on the table by local governments not effectively pursuing funding. Right now, there's a grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance that Harnett County could apply for, which would give them $50,000 for the next 3 years to address rural law enforcement. Harnett County's pretty rural. We would qualify to apply for that. So I think I would just, and I know for last year too, with the COVID assistance, we left hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table because we missed out on a community development grant that passed through to the state. And so I would just think about, if you can think strategically for this budget, think about, trying to work with departments to have allocated grant staff, because I think a lot of money gets left on the table that don't need to be leaving there, that we can't afford to be leaving there, because then we get told we can't have nice things like body cameras. So that's what I have to say about that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present that would like to speak? Is there anyone listening online or on the phone that would like to speak? Hearing no one and seeing no one else move, we will close this public hearing. I would like to let you know that the plan at this time is for the board to vote on the proposed budget at the June 7th meeting. However, if that does not happen by statute, we will have to approve a budget by June the 30th. All right, let's see. County Manager's report. Anything from county managers tonight?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is in your report, you've got the Veterans Service report and the Parks and Recreation quarterly report and the interdepartmental budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
One other thing I'd like to bring to your attention, of course, on Friday, the governor released his amended order
And we discussed that a little bit this morning. I met with the two assistant assistant managers, and I also talked to the health director and also the EMS director to get their input on it. What I'd like to recommend is that since I just walked in the door this morning, I'd like to ask you to give us about 2 weeks and let us come back with a proposed policy for you on this matter.
Sounds good.
Okay, and one of the things we want to particularly pay attention to is the infection rates, testing positive is an important number to look at, but to me, the most important number is how many cases have required hospitalization, because that's the ones that are serious. And so we'd like 2 weeks to look at that. It'll also give us 2 weeks to see how retail and other people in the community are reacting to this order, because since it just happened Friday, we don't really know what some of the retailers are going to do. So that would be our recommendation to you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Could they state their name for the record? Because we don't all know who he is. And the public would like to know who he is. For the record, you said county manager, he's had this meeting.
Right, he was just sworn in. Mr. George Wood.
Mr. George
Wood. Any questions for Mr. Wood or Mr. Price? Anything else?
No, sir. That's
all right. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Any new business to come before the body tonight? Hearing none, I do not believe we have need for a closed session tonight.
Nope. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Witherspoon. Second. Thank you, Commissioner Nickel. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The meeting is adjourned.